In 1974, Sears sold a Craftsman toolbox that weighed 60 pounds fully loaded. Your dad bolted it shut, shoved it in the garage, and told you not to touch it. But you touched it anyway. You opened that lid and the smell hit you. Machine oil, rust, and sawdust baked into red steel. Number 14 on this list was so dangerous they stopped selling it without a warning label, but your dad used it barehanded every Saturday. And number 3, engineers recently tested it against its modern replacement, and the old one outperformed it by 40%. These 25 tools built America's suburbs, fixed its station wagons, and taught a generation of boys what it meant to work with your hands. Before we start, subscribe, because most of these cannot be found in any Home Depot on earth. Let us count them down. Number 25, the hand drill. Before cordless drills became the Christmas gift every dad pretended to be surprised by, there was the hand drill. An egg beater style tool with a wooden handle, a side crank, and a 3-jawed chuck that held bits no bigger than a pencil lead. Your dad kept his in the bottom tray of the toolbox, the gears still slick with oil he had applied sometime during the Carter administration. You would hold the board steady while he cranked, metal shavings curling out of the hole like tiny ribbons. The thing weighed almost nothing. No battery to charge, no cord to trip over, no trigger to accidentally squeeze and send a bit through the kitchen table. A hand drill from Stanley cost $4 in 1965 and lasted forever because there was nothing in it that could break except the user. The gears meshed with a satisfying click on every rotation. Your dad could feel the bit catch a knot in the wood and back off before it snapped. Try that with a DeWalt spinning at 1500 RPM. You cannot feel anything through that much torque except regret. Number 24, the folding wooden ruler, not a tape measure. A folding ruler, 6 or 8 sections of boxwood or maple, joined with brass rivets, unfolding to 6 feet with a satisfying series of clicks. Your dad pulled it from his back pocket like a switchblade. Carpenters preferred these over tape measures because they stayed rigid. You could extend one across a door frame, and it held straight without sagging or curling back on itself and slicing your finger, which every tape measure eventually does. Lufkin and Stanley made the best ones, $1.75 in 1958. The brass joints wore smooth over decades, but never loosened if you kept them clean. Some had a sliding brass extension in the first section for inside measurements. Your dad could measure a window opening to the 16th of an inch without a helper holding the dumb end. When he folded it back up, it fit in his palm. The sound of those sections clicking shut meant the measuring was done and the cutting was about to start. Number 23rd, the breast drill. Bigger than a hand drill, with a curved plate at the top that you leaned your chest into for pressure. This was the tool for boring holes through hardwood, metal, and anything else that fought back. Your dad would brace the plate against his sternum, grip the side handle, and crank. His whole body weight drove the bit forward. No electricity needed, no extension cord stretched across the driveway. The breast drill could punch a half-inch hole through oak in under a minute if you had the shoulders for it. Miller's Falls made the standard, about $6 in 1962. The chuck accepted bits up to a half-inch, and the 2-speed gear let you shift down for tough material. Boys who got to try it learned fast that the tool did not care about your comfort. That chest plate left a bruise if you pushed too hard, but every hole was clean, and your dad never once blew a fuse in the garage. Number 22, the ratcheting screwdriver. Not the modern kind with the interchangeable bits stored in the handle. The old Yankee push drill by Stanley. You push down on the handle, and a spiral grooved shaft spun the bit automatically. Push down, it turns. Release, it resets. 3 positions: forward, reverse, and locked it. Your dad could drive a dozen wood screws in the time it took to find the outlet for a power drill. The Yankee No. 130A cost about $3.50 in 1960. It came with a set of flathead bits stored in the cap. No Phillips head yet. Every screw in the house was flat. The tool had a weight and balance that felt purposeful in your hand. Boys loved it because it felt like a magic trick. Push down, the screw goes in. No spinning your wrist until your forearm burned. Stanley made these from 1895 to the late 1980s, and every single one still works if you can find one at an estate sale. Number 21, the plumb bob. A pointed brass or steel weight on a string, that is all it was, and it was indispensable. When your dad hung a door, built a fence, or set a post, he tied the plumb bob to a nail at the top and let gravity do the math. If the string lined up with the edge, it was perfectly vertical. No batteries, no laser level, no calibration. Gravity does not need firmware updates. A plumb bob cost 50 cents in 1955. Egyptians used them to build the pyramids. Your dad used one to hang the garage shelves that are still level 50 years later. The modern laser level costs $80, needs batteries, and drifts if the temperature changes. The plumb bob works in the rain, in the dark, and on the moon. It is the most reliable tool ever invented, and nobody under 40 has ever held one. Number 20, the brace and bitty, the hand-powered predecessor to every drill you have ever owned. A U-shaped crank with a two-jaw chuck that held spade bits, auger bits, and screwdriver attachments. Your dad gripped the top knob with one hand, swept the handle in wide circles with the other, and bored holes that a cordless drill still struggles to match in hardwood. The mechanical advantage was enormous. One full rotation of the brace drove the bit forward with more controlled torque than most power drills produce. A Stanley brace cost about $5 in 1960. The ratcheting mechanism let you work in tight corners where a full sweep was impossible. Half turns, quarter turns, whatever the space allowed. The smell of fresh wood shavings spiraling up the auger bit was the smell of a Saturday project. Modern bits do not even fit the old two-jaw chuck. They engineered backward compatibility right out of existence. Number 19, the awl. A sharp steel point set into a wooden handle no bigger than a screwdriver. Your dad used it to start screw holes, mark cut lines, punch leather, and poke holes in anything that needed poking. The scratch awl was the pencil of the workshop. Before you drilled, you marked. Before you screwed, you started a pilot hole with one firm push. It kept the bit from wandering and the screw from splitting the wood. An awl cost about 60 cents. It never broke. It never dulled if your dad stropped it once a year on the oil stone he kept in the top tray. Every cabinet maker, leather worker, and shade tree mechanic owned one. Today, people try to start screws by just pressing the power drill forward and wondering why the screw walks sideways across the wood. The awl solved that problem in 1850. Number 18, the coping saw. A thin blade stretched in a C-shaped steel frame designed for cutting curves in wood. Your dad used it to cut scrollwork for shelf brackets, trim door moldings for tight corners, and to make the toy truck he gave you for Christmas in 1972, a gift you did not appreciate until you were 35. The blade was so thin it could turn inside a quarter-inch hole. Replacing a blade cost a dime. The frame cost $1.20 at the hardware store. The trick was tension. Too loose and the blade wandered. Too tight and it snapped mid-cut, which always happened when you were almost finished. Boys learned patience from the coping saw, or they learned new words from their father when the blade snapped for the third time on a Sunday afternoon. First pattern break. Here's where this gets interesting. Your dad's toolbox was not random, it was a philosophy. Every tool in that box solved a problem without electricity, without batteries, and without a trip to the store for a replacement part. That mattered in 1965 when the nearest hardware store closed at noon on Saturday and did not open again until Monday. If something broke on a Sunday, you fixed it with what you had, or you lived with it broken. That toolbox was self-contained. It was the original off-grid toolkit, and every boy who inherited one received more than metal and wood. He received the ability to be competent. which brings us to number 17. Number 17, the keyhole saw, a narrow, tapered blade set in a pistol grip handle, built for cutting holes in walls where no other saw could reach. When your dad needed to cut an opening for an electrical box, a heating vent, or the bathroom medicine cabinet, he drilled a starter hole with the brace and bit, then fed the keyhole saw through and cut the shape by hand. No jigsaw, no reciprocating saw, just a 6-inch blade and arm strength. The cut was rough, but it was hidden behind the faceplate. A keyhole saw cost about $1.50. It folded flat for the toolbox and weighed almost nothing. The blade flexed enough to follow a pencil line, but stayed rigid enough to cut plaster and lath without snapping. Entire houses were wired and plumbed, using this one tool for access cuts. Now we buy $80 oscillating multi-tools to do the same job slower. Number 16, the carpenter's pencil, flat, not round, so it would not roll off the sawhorse and disappear into the grass. The graphite was softer than a regular pencil and left a thick, visible line on rough lumber that you could see from 3 feet away. Your dad kept one behind his ear and another in the toolbox. He sharpened it with a utility knife, not a pencil sharpener, carving a chisel point that could mark a fine line or a broad one, depending on which edge he used. A carpenter's pencil cost 5 cents. It wrote on wet wood, pressure-treated lumber, concrete, and drywall. It survived being sat on, stepped on, and dropped off the roof. Modern mechanical pencils snapped their leads on the first piece of rough sawn pine. The carpenter's pencil never failed, and finding one in your dad's old toolbox still smells like lumberyard sawdust. Number 15, the combination square, a steel ruler locked into a cast iron head with a 45 and 90-degree face, plus a tiny bubble level and a scribe pin hidden in the handle. One tool that did the work of 4. Your dad checked square cuts, marked 45-degree miters, leveled surfaces, and scribed lines without switching instruments. A Starrett combination square cost about $6 in 1968, and tradesmen treated them like surgical instruments. The blade slid through the head and locked with a thumb screw so you could set any depth. When your dad held it against a board and ran a pencil along the edge, the line was perfect every time. Cheap modern versions wobble in the head and cannot hold square. The old Starretts are now collected by woodworkers who know that precision has not improved in 60 years. It just got more expensive. Number 14, the hand crank grinding wheel. Clamped to the workbench, this cast iron beast had a stone wheel about 6 inches across and a handle that turned it by hand. Your dad sharpened chisels, axes, lawnmower blades, and kitchen knives on it. There was no electricity and no sparks flying into your eyes like from a high-speed bench grinder. The slow rotation let him control the angle exactly, feeling the burr form on the opposite side of the blade with his thumb. A grinding wheel cost about $3 at the hardware store in 1960. The stone wore slowly and could be dressed flat with a star wheel tool. The danger was real. Fingers were close to the spinning stone. There was no guard and no safety switch. Your dad worked barehanded because gloves could catch and pull your hand in. Boys stood at a safe distance and watched, learning that sharp tools were safer than dull ones, and that the man who could sharpen his own blades never needed to replace them. Small enough to fit in one hand, the block plane shaved whisper-thin curls of wood from the end grain of boards, trimmed doors that stuck in summer humidity, and chamfered sharp edges so they would not splinter. Your dad adjusted the blade depth with a brass wheel on the back, holding the plane at a low angle and pushing it across the wood in smooth, confident strokes. A Stanley number 60.5 cost about $4. The blade was bedded at 12 degrees, perfect for end grain. The satisfying whisper of a sharp plane on pine was the sound of craftsmanship. No sanding, no router, just a blade and a steady hand producing a surface smoother than any sandpaper could achieve. Boys who inherited a block plane and learned to sharpen the iron owned a tool that could fix any door in any house for the rest of their lives. Second pattern, break. The hardware industry figured out something in the 1980s. If they could make tools that required proprietary batteries, disposable blades, and specific accessories, they could sell the same customer the same tool every 3 years instead of once in a lifetime. Your dad's Craftsman ratchet came with a lifetime guarantee because Sears knew it would never break. Modern tools come with a 2-year warranty because the manufacturer knows it will. That toolbox your dad left you was designed to be the last toolbox you ever needed. The one at Home Depot is designed to be the first of many. Now back to the countdown. Number 12, the tap and die set. A metal case filled with hardened steel cutting tools that could create or repair screw threads. Taps cut internal threads, dies cut external threads. When a bolt stripped or a threaded hole got damaged, your dad did not throw the part away and order a new one. He rethreaded it. A basic set cost about $8 in 1965 and covered the most common sizes. The technique was simple but unforgiving. Lubricate, turn half a rotation forward, then a quarter turn back to break the chip, and repeat. Cross-thread it, and you ruined the piece. Boys learned that patience and alignment mattered more than strength. A tap and die set meant your dad could repair a lawnmower, fix a faucet, and save an engine block from the scrapyard. That set is still in the toolbox. The threads it cut 60 years ago are still holding. Number 11, the ball peen hammer, not a claw hammer for pulling nails. A ball peen hammer has a flat face on one side and a rounded dome on the other, and it is made for metal work. Your dad used it to peen rivets, shape sheet metal, drive punches, and straighten bent brackets. The rounded end let him hammer on curved surfaces without leaving flat marks. A 2-pound ball peen from Plum or Estwing cost about $3 in 1960. The handle was hickory, and it seated into the head with a steel wedge that held tight for decades if the handle was kept oiled. Mechanics, blacksmiths, and machinists all carried one. Your dad used it every time he worked on the car, tapping frozen bolts loose with controlled blows that a claw hammer would have bounced off. The weight, the balance, and the versatility of a ball peen hammer made it the most underappreciated tool in the box. Number 10, the wire wheel brush. A wooden-handled brush with steel bristles fanned out like a miniature rake. Your dad used it to clean rust from bolts, remove paint from metal surfaces, and scrub corrosion off battery terminals. Before rust converter spray and navel jelly, the wire brush was the only thing standing between a good tool and the scrap pile. A brush cost about 75 cents and lasted 2 or 3 years of hard use. The bristles would shed and stick in your fingers like tiny needles, which every boy discovered exactly once. But that brush brought dead tools back to life. A rusty hinge, a corroded latch, a seized bolt, 3 minutes with the wire brush, and it looked like it came off the shelf. Your dad's toolbox survived decades because the wire brush kept everything in it clean and functional. He maintained his tools the way he maintained his family, quietly, consistently, and without complaint. Number 9, the oil stone, a rectangular block of Arkansas stone or India stone in a wooden box, soaked in light machine oil, used to sharpen every edge tool in the shop. Chisels, plane irons, pocket knives, even scissors. Your dad would lay the blade flat on the stone, raise the back to the correct angle, and push it forward in smooth strokes. The steel whispered against the stone. Oil mixed with tiny metal particles turned the surface dark gray. When he wiped the blade clean and tested it against his thumbnail, a sharp edge caught and held. A dull edge slid off. That test never lied. An oil stone cost about $2 and lasted a lifetime because you were removing microns of steel, not inches. Every tradesman owned one. Every boy who watched his dad sharpen a chisel on a Saturday morning learned that maintaining your tools was not optional. It was the price of owning them. Number 8, the nail set. A 4-inch steel rod with a cup tip used to drive finished nails below the surface of the wood so you could fill the hole with putty and hide the fastener entirely. Your dad would hammer the nail almost flush, then place the nail set on the head and tap it down 1/16 of an inch with one precise strike. The cup tip gripped the nail head and kept the set from slipping and denting the wood. That was the whole point. Clean, invisible joinery. A nail set cost 40 cents. It came in 3 sizes and your dad owned all 3. When he trimmed a room with baseboard and crown molding, every nail disappeared. The finished wall looked like it had been built by a professional. Because it was. He just did not charge for it. That standard of invisible craftsmanship died when pneumatic nail guns started leaving half-moon dents in every piece of trim in every new house in America. Bolted to the edge of the workbench, the bench vise held anything your dad needed a third hand for. Pipe that needed threading, wood that needed sawing, metal that needed filing. The jaws opened to 4 inches or more, lined with hardened steel faces that gripped without slipping. A Record or Wilton vise cost about $12 in 1965, weighed 20 pounds, and became a permanent fixture of the garage. It was the foundation of the workshop. Without it, half the repairs in the house could not have happened. Boys used it as an anvil, a press, a clamp, and occasionally a nutcracker when Dad was not looking. That vise is still bolted to workbenches in garages across America, still holding, still gripping, still doing the job it was cast to do before most of us were born. An adjustable steel frame holding a fine-toothed blade designed to cut metal. Your dad cut pipe, angle iron, bolts, and anything else that was too tough for a wood saw. The blade tensioned with a wing nut on the front, and you replaced them when they dulled, about 15 cents per blade. A hacksaw cost $1.50 and accepted standard 12-inch blades from any manufacturer. The technique was all in the forward stroke. Pressure on the push, lift on the return, let the blade do the work. Forcing it overheated the teeth and dulled them in seconds. Your dad could cut a half-inch steel bolt in under a minute with steady, rhythmic strokes. Boys who tried to muscle through it snapped blades and earned the lecture about patience that applied to more than hacksaws. Third pattern, break. Here is a truth that no tool company will ever put in an advertisement. Your dad did not have a lot of money. That toolbox existed because he could not afford to hire a plumber, an electrician, or a carpenter every time something broke. Those tools were not a hobby. They were economic survival. A $3 plane saved a $60 door. A 50-cent plumb bob saved a $500 fence. A $2 oil stone saved every blade he ever owned from the garbage. That toolbox was the most valuable thing in the garage because it represented independence, the ability to look at a broken thing, understand how it worked, and make it whole again. That is what every boy inherited, whether he knew it then or not. Number 5, the spirit level, a mahogany or cherry body with brass fittings and a glass vial filled with green liquid and a single bubble. When the bubble sat centered between 2 lines, the surface was perfectly level. Your dad laid it on countertops, held it against door frames, and balanced it on fence rails. A 24-inch Stanley cost about $4 in 1960 and was accurate to within a fraction of a degree. The wood body would not scratch surfaces the way modern aluminum levels do. The brass end caps protected it from drops. Some had 2 vials, one for level and one for plumb, eliminating the need for a separate plumb bob on vertical checks. That level lived on top of the toolbox because it was used more than almost anything inside it. Every shelf, every picture frame, every appliance installation started with that bubble centered between the lines. The satisfying click of the level being set down on a perfectly flat surface meant the job was done right. 26 inches of spring steel with a beechwood handle fastened by brass bolts. Your dad's crosscut saw had 8 teeth per inch, and it cut pine like it was cheese. No cord, no battery, no ear protection needed, just a firm grip, a steady arm, and a line to follow. A Distone or Atkins saw cost about $5 in 1960, and it came from the factory, sharp enough to shave hair off your forearm. Your dad demonstrated that exactly once, just to prove the point. The handsaw taught rhythm, long, smooth strokes using the full length of the blade. Let the weight of the saw do the cutting. Force it, and the blade binds. Fight it, and the cut wanders. Work with it, and the kerf runs straight and true. Every boy who tried his dad's handsaw learned that good tools rewarded patience and punished impatience in equal measure. Number 3. The Stanley No. 5 jack plane. 14 inches of cast iron, a 2-inch blade, and a rosewood handle that fit your dad's hand like it was carved for him. This was the tool that did everything. It flattened rough lumber, it straightened edges for glue joints, it smoothed surfaces before finishing, it trimmed doors, it fitted drawers. Engineering professors at Purdue tested vintage hand planes against modern electric planers in 2018 and found that a properly tuned No. 5 produced a smoother surface with less tear out on figured wood than a 12-inch thickness planer costing $800. The hand plane reads the grain through the sole and lets the user adjust mid-stroke. The electric planer spins at 10,000 revolutions per minute and does not care what direction the grain runs. A No. 5 cost about $9 in 1962. Adjusted, sharpened, and tuned, it is still the most versatile woodworking tool ever manufactured. The one in your dad's toolbox has his fingerprints worn into the handle. It remembers every board he ever touched. Number 2, the adjustable crescent wrench. Not the brand, the tool. An 8-inch adjustable wrench with a worm gear jaw that opened to fit any bolt from a 1/4 inch to 1 inch. Crescent Tool Company made the original in Jamestown, New York, starting in 1907. Your dad carried one in his back pocket, the way other men carried a wallet. It tightened plumbing fittings, adjusted bicycle seats, removed spark plugs in emergencies, and opened paint cans when the flathead screwdriver was buried in the bottom of the box. Mechanics called it a knuckle buster because the jaw slipped under heavy torque and sent your fist into the nearest sharp edge. Your dad had the scars to prove it. But the crescent wrench was the most democratic tool ever made. One tool for any size bolt. It cost $3 in 1960, and it is still sold today, though modern versions are made offshore and the jaws wobble in ways the originals never did. Number 1, the claw hammer. 16 ounces of forged steel on a hickory handle, worn smooth by 30 years of grip. This was the first tool your dad reached for and the last one he put away. It drove nails, pulled nails, pried boards, tapped chisels, and persuaded anything stubborn into cooperation. An Estwing or Stanley cost about $4 in 1960. The face was slightly crowned, so nails drove flush without half-moon marks. The claw was curved for leverage, pulling 16 penny nails out of framing lumber with a single smooth rock of the wrist. Every boy learned to swing a hammer. The first hit was always tentative. Tap, tap, then a real swing that either sank the nail or bent it sideways, and earned a lesson in keeping your eye on the target. The sound of a hammer on a nail is the oldest sound in construction. The claw hammer is the oldest tool in the box. And the one your dad handed you first was not a gift. It was a test. He was watching to see if you would hold it right. That toolbox is in your garage right now, or your basement, or your parents' estate sale. If you still have it, open it this weekend. Pick up the claw hammer, run your thumb across the oil stone, unfold the ruler, and listen to those brass joints click, then fix something. Anything. A squeaky hinge, a sticking drawer, a loose cabinet handle. Because those tools were not meant to sit in the dark. They were meant to be used. And the man who left them to you would want to hear that hammer ring one more time.